How's it going, everybody? Brian Elvers and Lance Storm here on Figure 4 Daily, Friday, September 28, 2018, figure4online.com/wrestlingobserver.com. We got a lot to get into here today, all sorts of topics. Hopefully we get them all in. If not, hey, we're here next Friday. Fear not. Lance, we got to talk about Brie. It's the number one thing to talk about here today.
Yes, she's certainly in the news, if you'd like. Yeah.
Now, I want to mention, by the way, before we get talking about it, that I have breaking news here on this show after we get talking about it. I have got the story from the WWE side. What happened? I'm going to tell you about it as we get going here. So, Lance, let's get your thoughts first, and then I'm going to tell you what they said happened.
Alrighty. Well, I think what happened is quite obvious. You know, she kicked Liv Morgan in the face twice, but it's her fault. She wasn't paying enough attention, and she kicked the woman in the face, didn't notice, and kicked her in the face again. You know, that's, as far as I'm concerned, you know, undisputable. But that doesn't mean she's a menace. She needs to be banned. She's a terror in the ring. The only people that really know that are the people who work with her regularly. Everyone screws up. She wasn't paying close enough attention. I'm quite sure she will pay more attention in the future, but I don't think you can argue she made a mistake, kicked this woman really hard twice, and with, you know, concussions and people having their careers ended when they get too many of them, it can be pretty serious. And this could be long-term for Liv Morgan. She could be fine next week, and I think that's the biggest thing. But I think this is more a symptom than Brie being the problem by any stretch of the imagination. And it's the symptom of, I think, the more we consider it sports entertainment and fun. We talked about this the last Friday we did a show, where it's like, rather than having your match, you know, the B team is trying to chant B team, yay, 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 while they kick someone. And Brie is trying to do a yes chant while she kicks someone. Because we got to get these chants in. And wrestling is a very dangerous sport. It's not a competitive sport in the truest sense, but it's a dangerous, potentially dangerous physical activity that I think everyone should pay more attention and care to, because we're putting our lives and our physical well-being in other people's hands. And I think at times, and this is on The Office as much as it is Brie, as it is the industry on the whole, not just WWE, because I see it all the time on indies where, you know, students will send me matches and it's like you see people throwing head kicks and knee strikes and hurting people, and it's like, people need to pay more attention and be careful and don't just do stuff because, well, we got to do dives, we've got to do head kicks.
Well, here's the WWE side of the story. So they're in the ring, and Brie starts throwing kicks, and she throws 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kicks, getting the yes chants going. Looking at the corner as she's throwing kicks, which is problem number one. That's where this whole thing started. Like, I think that many people have pointed out the fact that there's a much smaller target when you're trying to do yes kicks on a woman. You don't want to kick them in the boobs. You don't want to kick them in the head. Unlike a dude where you can kick him anywhere from, like, the bottom part of the sternum up. So she's got to be paying attention to her opponent. That's number one. So she's looking at the corner. She throws a kick, hits Liv, and the belief is she got knocked out on that first kick. She starts to fall forward. She gets hit a second time, which, by the way, exceedingly dangerous to get hit that second time after you've been hit the first time.
Yes.
She goes down. Now, God bless the guy. I don't want the guy to be fired, but I do. This goes for every referee that works for WWE. The story is the ref had no clue that Liv Morgan was unconscious. Now, I'm going to presume that's true, okay? Because based on everything that happened from this point forward, I'm going to presume that he actually did not know that she was unconscious. Now, the first question I have is, what the hell is he looking at? What's he doing? Like,
well, maybe he was looking at the corner too.
Do you know how many times I've watched an MMA fight, and you and me and everybody watching are wondering, why the hell is the ref not stopping this match? Like, this match should have been stopped 10 minutes ago. And then later you talk to the referee, and what does the referee always say? I'm right there. You're watching at home. I'm right there in the ring. I'm looking at the person. I know whether they're in this game or whether they're out of this game. How many referees have said that? Millions of them. 1 billion times.
Well, yes, but that UFC ref doesn't have an earpiece in. He might have been getting told a time cue. He might have been getting instructions, and his focus could have been elsewhere, going, okay, they got 6 minutes. I got to tell them to speed things up. And he missed that kick. And then, for all he knows, she's selling.
Well, it's possible, but my understanding is he was not getting a cue at that moment. He just didn't know that Liv Morgan's dead body was her being knocked out. So he does nothing. Brie knows, obviously, that Liv is out, okay? And I know this because, well, here's the problem. If she knew that she was out, she should not have turned her over, covered her, tried to yank her to the corner or anything like that, but she did. And I know she knows that she was out because if you watch the video, you can actually hear Brie. After she drags her to the opposite corner, you can hear her tell the other girls she's out. So, Ruby Riott tags in. At that point, backstage, they know something's up. And they're asking the ref, what's going on here? So, then Sarah Logan carries Liv and she takes her down to the floor. So now the medical personnel backstage, they're now talking to Dr. Aman. So at this point, the ref apparently still doesn't know that anything is up because there's a match going on and he's looking at ringside. He's looking down at Liv like, what's going on here? To the point where there's a near fall and he's not counting and Brie has to yell at the referee to get down here and count. So now the ref is like, oh, I got to get down here and count. So he counts, and now backstage is giving him all these instructions. Tell everyone it's going to be a handicap match, blah, blah, blah. So then they go for the triple suplex spot or whatever, and somehow tiny Liv Morgan gets from ringside, past Aman, past the referee, and into the ring to do this spot, okay? Apparently, when she was getting in the ring, the ref he doesn't stop her, mind you. He tells her, don't get in the ring. Just verbally.
Yeah, I saw that. You can see her when she's on the apron, he's screaming, get down, get down.
Yes.
And then when she gets in, he's waving his hands, no. Yep.
So she gets in the ring anyway, nobody physically stops her. So she gets in the ring, she's telling everybody she's fine. She ends up doing the suplex, and she rocks herself again. So, by the way, this is three, like...
Concussive blows.
Concussive blows, thank you. This is three, the first one that knocked her out, the second one when she was falling down, and now there was a third one after they let her get back in the ring, and she hits his third suplex and knocks herself silly again. At that point, they get her out of the ring, they go to commercial. Now she's dragged over to the corner, Aman's checking on her until everything is done, and that's the story of what happened right there. It's not even a comedy, it's a tragedy of errors that happened here. For those of you that don't remember, I know this is your show, Lance, so I don't want to rant forever, I just want to say, do you guys know why Bret Hart retired? Because Bret Hart did a match with Goldberg, and he suffered a concussion. That's not what ended his career.
He kept working.
What ended his career was he worked again, like, I don't remember if it was the SmackDown tapings or what, but he went from a concussion at the hands of Goldberg to a hardcore match where he was waffled in the head multiple times by different objects. It was a succession of concussive blows that ended his career. That's what happened to Liv Morgan in this match because nobody grabbed her to keep her from getting back in that ring. She had 3 concussive blows in a very short period of time. This falls on the referee. This falls on Brie Bella. This falls on the doctor outside. This falls on everybody who allowed all of this to go on. It's not one person's fault. And I'm still sweating right now thinking about it. I'm so mad about it.
Yeah, they really need to, and I don't know if they do or not, and I would imagine they're going to more so now. Because this was my big rant. When you and Dave talked about it, and Dave, it's like, well, you can't blame her. You know, wrestlers are trained to always finish a match no matter what. And I'm like, yeah, that was what I was taught in 1990. Liv wasn't born yet. You know, she's only been wrestling a small period of time. That shouldn't be what she's been trained to do. And if they haven't for the last few years in the PC and on the main roster, they certainly should be now teaching everyone what's protocol when someone gets knocked out. What's protocol when someone... Now, again, if the ref didn't see it, he's not aware, but somebody needed to see it quickly and scream at the ref, she's out, and then he should instinctively go into whatever protocol is, which should be completely stop it. Now, with this being a multi-person tag match, it wouldn't have been bad if he just stepped in, pushed Brie back, and said, get the doctor here. Doctor came in, attended to Liv. If he thought he could roll her out of the ring and take her to the back, great. And then let's restart. That's fine. Or just throw the X up and go, no contest, or Brie wins and move on. But they definitely need a protocol because, you mentioned Bret Hart. Chris Nowinski was the same thing. Chris Nowinski uses the video of when, I think it was Edge and Ray, or it might have been Edge and Christian, I don't remember who, tried to do a double top rope drop kick to Nowinski from opposite corners, from corners parallel to each other. And one got there first, and when Edge did it, he missed Chris with the drop kick, but bumped hip first on Nowinski's face and gave him a concussion. But I remember Chris telling me the story that he worked a couple times after a concussion, and because he didn't want to say he was hurt, he didn't want to, wuss out, so to speak. And it wasn't till he worked concussed that I think it was Finlay that finally saw him at TV and said, dude, you have to go to the doctor. What's wrong with you? Because he noticed he wasn't, all there, so to speak. And that's what probably saved his life to a certain extent. But Chris's was compounded, Bret's was compounded, and unfortunately, Liv's was compounded. Now, hopefully it won't be long-term problematic, but it was extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
And then also, too, because you mentioned it, I forget on what show, but just on the Brie. And I don't want to dump on Brie. She obviously made a mistake. And the only people that know whether she regularly makes mistakes are the women that work with her. But it was only 2 spots later that Brie elbowed Ruby Riott right in the face.
Yes.
With another careless blow. And that's the thing that amazed me, because you mentioned it with the kick. She should have noticed when she felt, the woman's face hit her shin. I'm like, well, she should have saw it, because that's something that I harp when I teach. You should have your eyes on your target until contact is made. Because when we do drop kicks, someone will throw a drop kick. I'm like, okay, where did you hit him? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, why weren't you watching until your feet touched? Because that way you know whether you're hitting something safely or not. So if she didn't see her shin connect with her face, then she wasn't watching when she kicked. And that's obviously a problem. But the biggest thing, too, and this is where...
Well, let me say one more thing about Brie, and then you can go on.
Sure.
So, here's the thing that really bothers me about this. I don't want to pile onto Brie, but, this happened, so I just got to talk about it. So, if you and I are having a match, all right, and...
I'm not putting you over this time.
I throw a kick, all right, and I hit you in the face, all right, and I hit you, and I'm like, fuck, I hit him hard. Let's just say it's the last kick of a series, and I kick you and you go down, okay? But the last one, I hit you, hard in the forehead or whatever, and you go down. As I moved over you, I would ask you, are you all right, okay? If you immediately answer, yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm fine. All right? Maybe you got a concussion, maybe you didn't, but, you're awake the entire time. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. So I can understand something that happens all the time in matches, by the way. You can watch every Monday, every Thursday, at some point in probably a 2-week period or less. You're going to see someone stiff somebody, and they go for a cover, and their head goes close because they're saying, are you all right? The other person says, yeah. All right? Match goes on. It happens all the time, okay? But in this situation here, she hit her, and Liv went absolutely completely limp. So when Brie moved down to the mat, it was a struggle to get her turned over because she was dead weight. Okay, so there's no asking are you okay? And Liv responding to her. Very well, Liv, by the time she got turned over, may have responded to her. I don't know. Maybe when Liv kicked out, she came to and was like, I'm okay. Just instinctually saying that. But before that, Brie had to fight to turn her dead body over. So that right there, it's like, you got to stop there. Like, you have to stop right there when they are dead limp, right?
Absolutely. But again, she should have been told that at some point.
Everyone should know that. It should be common sense.
Well, that's what I mean. They should be taught this and should have been taught this for the last year or so. And I don't know whether that is, which, again, takes some of the blame off Brie if she's never been told what to do in this situation.
I don't know.
And that's it too, because I don't want to just dump on Brie, because, like you say, everyone who's worked has tagged somebody with something. I actually, and again, I'm one of the lightest, safest workers you're ever going to work with. I tagged Goldust once. It was just a thing we'd done a million times, and I just touched him on the button and dropped him with a little back elbow. And that was, he was down and he was on his back, and I just covered him real quick, because this is 15, 16, 17 years ago now. We were far less safe back then as far as taking care of people. And it's like I covered him, and I think Book made the save because Book noticed that he might not be all right. And it's like, before I even touched him, and again, I covered it, but I'm not sure I actually made contact. I said to him, "You all right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And it's like, just the way he said it, I'm like, "No, you're not. Stay here." And again, I think he sat up at the time, said, "I'm fine." And I put the world's lightest chin lock and said, "Just stay here for a minute." And we just stayed there. He's like, "I'm fine." I'm like, "No, you're not." And because we were told you do not stop matches, especially since the guy is saying he's fine. But it's like, I forget exactly what I did, but it's like, no, we're getting up and getting Booker in here. And it's like, I never hit him again. I wouldn't let him run. And so everybody's tagged somebody, and people need to be taught now what to do with it. But I think too, and this is where I think Brie is a symptom of the environment now, in that women, and it's not just women's wrestling, I see it on indies with dudes too. It's like, well, to have good matches, you got to flip. So people that have no business flipping, flip, and people get hurt. And I think in WWE, women's wrestling was at a certain level. And then there was a handful of women, started with Paige and Emma, and continued with Sasha and Bayley and Charlotte, that really raised the bar. They worked hard. They got good. Whoever helped them put their matches together, it started getting really good matches. And then somewhere along the line, someone just went, women are good. They're going to do everything the men do now. And some women, and this is not necessarily on Brie, I don't work with her enough to know whether she is or isn't, but they're making women just, well, they do dives because guys do dives. They do head kicks because guys do head kicks. And it's like, yes, some women can do all of the stuff the men do, but not all of them. Much like not all of the men can do what Finn Balor does. And I think that's the problem, because, again, Brie's throwing these kicks not because she's good at these kicks, but because her husband does.
Yes, same with Miz, and his suck in a different way.
Yes. And if, and again, I see this on the indies, and I see it with dudes. It's not just the women in WWE that we all have to do super kicks because that's what you do. And it's like, we're all going to do Shining Wizards. And there's people that just miss by a ton because they're no good. But there's people that knock people silly all the time. I see it here locally. It's like, this past weekend, I think there was 2 or 3 people on a show that got concussions. And I'm like, if you're not good enough. It reminds me, it was just after I opened the school. I went back, WWE was in town for a TV taping. And it was when all the Nexus guys were brought up from developmental. And I'm sitting at ringside with Kane and Taker. And, John Morrison's running knee, where the guy's sitting on his butt in the ring and he hits the ropes and does that knee, similar to the Brie mode knee that she does against the ropes. And he was trying to teach a couple of guys how to do it. And we're sitting there, and they're like 30 minutes in of this one guy trying to get this knee. And I just looked at Glenn, and I said, if you have to practice kneeing me in the face for 20 minutes, you're not kneeing me in the face. And he just laughed and leaned over to Taker's like, you got to hear this. And I repeated myself, and he's like, yeah, damn right. And not everybody needs to do Shining Wizards. Not everybody needs to find what you do well. And I think this can be a good transition into our next topic, unless you want to continue.
I gotta say one other thing. You're preaching to the choir, by the way.
Yeah, and it's
what you do well.
Safety is such an important thing, and this is something actually I talked to the one. I think it was both women's class. There was a large women's class I was talking with my last day when I was at the PC, and I was teaching a few of the women how to throw a good punch. And I was saying, because you guys are in a closed environment where you only work with each other, you have a chance where you can make this business really great, or you can make this business really shitty. And it's like, if one of you throws a strike that you're not good at, you're going to make the other girls cover up and flinch because they're in fear of their safety. And as soon as the girls start covering up and flinching, all of us that throw good safe strikes can no longer make them look good because we've got this flinching, untrusting target. I said, when you go out there and you have to schlep it on the indies, you're going to get all kinds, and you're probably better off to flinch and get your hands up because people are going to kill you. But I'm like, all of you women are here together. Do not throw strikes you can't do well. Be that trustworthy, closed environment where if everybody trusts each other because no one works above or below their own pay grade, everyone can be safe. And it's like, you can give me a stationary target and no, I will not hurt you. And it's like, if everybody stuck to that credo, and again, I'm quite sure Buddy harped on you. It's like, you don't hurt somebody. If you can't do it, don't damn well do it. And I think
you didn't have to tell me. I just didn't do it.
If everybody,
it's common sense.
Yeah, if I put my body or my face in your hands, you have to treat it the way you want it treated. And I think everyone would be better at that. And don't rush to, I want to have a super kick. I want to do, a Pele kick. It's like, only if you do it exceptionally well.
It's not even it. It's like I watch all of these women's matches in WWE, and sometimes I'm watching these matches and I'm just thinking, what is that move that you're doing there? Like, a lot of these women, they want them to do these bizarre moves, like, the one where you stand up and you do a full split standing and then you fall with a guillotine over somebody, you land in the splits. It's like, what is that? What is that move? And random flips, and there was like a Charlotte Lana match where they're just trying all of these goofy high spots and rolls and everything like that, and it's like, these women are flexible, and we could teach them to do some acrobatics, so let's teach them that. They'll have better matches. Incorrect. A guy texted me today on the Observer Live show. He goes, why does it seem that the women who come from Japan are so much better than the women from America? And I was like, because they are. That's why it seems that way. They're 1,000 times better. And you know what? Let's look at like the 3 Japanese women. We've got Asuka, who's been here for a long time, Kairi Sane, and now Io Shirai last night, all right? Kairi does a flying elbow. What else? What other flips and dives and everything does she do?
Just that sliding D thing.
Yeah, but there's nothing over the top rope. It's not some crazy tope or dive or anything. What does Asuka do? A flying hip attack? Her finish isn't even off the top. Io Shirai did one dive in that match in the Mae Young Classic, a moonsault. She almost killed her opponent, by the way.
Killed her with it,
okay.
Yeah.
The best match in the tournament, besides that Rachel Evers match,
which was the best match in the tournament.
The woman from China and the Chinese woman from the Bronx. I already forget their names, so it doesn't matter. Like, it was the best match, okay?
Kelly Q and Zaya
Yes,
Lee.
yes. Did either of them do a dive? Did either of them come off the top? Did either of them? No, they went in there and they had a great wrestling match. Like your dives and your goofy spots. This is all the icing on the cake. If you can't do a fundamental wrestling match, then you have no business going in there and doing the splits into a leg drop. That's what I'm trying to say here. Well, that's the important stuff.
And I think the important stuff, too, because I would agree those were my 2 favorite matches. Those were the Chinese ladies and Rachel and Matsumoto. They were the 2 matches that told a story. Because there was the woman from China that, hits the martial arts, pose, and then the Chinese-American woman also hit that pose. And there was sort of the battle of the Chinese ninjas, if you will. I don't know if ninjas are Chinese or Japanese, but there was a story to be had here. The authentic Chinese woman and the Chinese-American that was going to be like, I'm going to stay there right with you. And the Matsumoto-Rachel Evers match, you had Godzilla versus the women's powerlifting champion. And it was the big mean girl match. And they started off with the tackles trying to knock each other over. It's like they told the story of Godzilla versus King Kong. And there was a story. And it wasn't just let's do a dive, let's do a kick. And I think that's, too, that so many people, I think, forget. When the women's evolution, and I hate using that term, but when the 4 to 6 women in NXT really stepped up and took. Those matches had great stories. I used to love watching Becky and Charlotte because they did arm drags really well. And I'm watching it going, this is, Flair Steamboat with the arm drags. It's like, except it's a different Flair and it's Becky Lynch. And that's where, too, you hear Dave talk about all the time about how the New Japan dojo produces such great workers. It's because they only let them do basics first. And I talk about this all the time at the indie level. You have mark promoters and mark bookers that just let guys go out there and get their cheap pops with flips, kicks, and what have you. But in New Japan, when you're the new guy, it's like, no, go do your basics. And you have to perfect the 1.5-star match before you're allowed to add bells and whistles to your repertoire. And that's something I preach at my school. It's like, get really good at having a basic match. That's how you become safe. And until you're really good at kicking, don't kick anybody in the head. And that gets back to, we've talked about it before, it's like hit people in safe places. I hate the analogy, hit people hard in safe places. It's like, no, hit me in safe places until you never hit me hard. Then you can start picking other places.
This brings us to Carmella.
Yes.
Not everybody needs to be a professional wrestler.
No, and I don't even consider that an indictment of her. I'm not as hard on her wrestling as you were, but I will admit that when she was doing her, her main event wrestling matches for the title on SmackDown, hers were not the best main events. And many people, you specifically, thought they were some of the worst segments on the show.
Well, hey, can I jump in very quickly?
Sure.
Carmella's not very good in the ring at all right? Either's Lana. You don't see me complaining that Lana should never wrestle again. The issue is, if you're not very good in the ring, why are you the champion working 20-minute live main events on television? That's why she got it. Well,
yeah, but to me, it's play people to their strengths.
Her strength is not 20-minute live championship matches on television.
Agreed, and I thought that Truth segment was one of the best segments on that show. It was so much fun. And this is something that I talk to my students. It's like, you can break it down into subcategories if you want, but I always say there's 3 elements you need to make it. There's your look. If it's men, it's size. If it's women, it's your attractiveness, whatever. There's that look that they want. And then there's personality, charisma, which I tie into talking ability. And then there's the ability to actually do the job and wrestle. And if you look at those 3 categories, Carmella's 2 strongest are her appearance and the fact that she's got a ton of charisma, personality, and can talk. Her wrestling, whether you think it's good, adequate, not great, it's her weakest of the 3. So play to her strengths. And there are women that promo-wise isn't their strong suit, but they're really great wrestlers, and they look like wrestlers, so it's like, well, let's make them wrestlers. And we just had Don Callis, Cyrus, my old Killing the Town co-host. He came by the school, and he talked about it. It's like he was a wrestler, but from an appearance standpoint and size standpoint, for the mid-90s, he was small.
Yeah, now he's a giant.
Yeah, but he was small then. And as a worker, he was a good worker, but he wasn't sensational. But he was an amazing personality and a talker, and it's like he became a speaking character and a manager, and he got over and drew money. And Bobby Heenan, who could work, he could wrestle, but he was such an amazing promo and character, he became the greatest manager of all time. And I can't imagine anyone in the business would go, Bobby Heenan, he was just a manager. And that's where, go with what is your strongest selling features, and Carmella was phenomenal. And I'm a guy that loves wrestling and hates Gaga. That 7-second dance break was funny.
It's awesome. Should have played into the main event finish, or the finish of that match.
Yeah, I heard you mention that. I'm like, if they didn't do distractions all the time, that's the perfect finish.
Dude, even if they do distractions, that was a perfect finish.
Well, yeah, but it's better if they didn't distract people every time with a schoolboy. Well, but sure, yeah, if she just screamed out 7-second dance break, they hit the music and she started dancing. And Miz turned and looked at her and Truth beat him. It's the perfect finish.
And they would have went nuts for that finish.
Oh, yeah.
Problem is, it's a happy ending. We can't have that.
Can't have that. Gotta get heat.
Must get our heat.
But also, too, on that, I just, because it was an analogy I had thought up I want to hit. It's like Sherry Martel. Sherry Martel could wrestle. And actually, there was probably a time where she was, one of the better women's wrestlers out there. But she's a Hall of Famer. I think everyone considers Sherry Martel a big contributor to the business that people respected. But what was her actual biggest accomplishments? Was it helping to elevate Shawn Michaels when she was with Shawn Michaels? Was it helping to elevate Harlem Heat when she was Sister Sherry? Was it helping to elevate Randy Savage when she was Queen Sherry? It's like she was a valet, but nobody thought less of her because she was a valet. And say what you want, and I like Lana. I worked with her at the PC the first time I went there, but she's always been more over and brought more to the product when she was Rusev's manager and she was Lana. When she was female women's wrestler Lana, she was one of 10 women and she wasn't the best one there.
Being very nice, Lance.
Well, again, she's probably in the bottom couple, to be honest.
Yes.
But she was extraordinary standout, the best valet they had. Why would you give that up to be the 6th best wrestler on your brand? And I think it's knowing that it's contributing and being, does anybody think Paul Heyman, oh, he's just a manager. What the hell did Paul Heyman contribute? And I think people need to play to their strengths.
So we're on the subject of women. We have time today to talk about more from the Mae Young Classic, your girl Rachel Evers, commentary, etc.
Ooh, the commentary was something I wanted to hit from last week.
It's horrible.
It is, and it's not. I get that they don't know all these women, but the thing that drove it home to me that I was literally screaming at my television. There was I'm trying to think, who did the Indian? Oh, it was the really bad match a week ago. There was the Indian lady and Ariel Monroe. And they casually mentioned that last year at the Mae Young Classic, Davida, I think her name was, had her very first match, and she was in the Mae Young Classic. And her second match was at WrestleMania. And they just casually mentioned, move on. And then later in the same show, they had, oh crap, who was the other woman that they were trying to hype up? I don't remember who it was, but they mentioned that, did you know that last year was her very first match? Her very first match was in the Mae Young, and all the announcers are freaking out, going, oh my God, that's unbelievable. And I'm like, 2 matches ago, there was a girl you said the same thing about, and nobody cared. And her second match was at WrestleMania. And it's just, you've got to connect your dots. And it was just the other match, the woman from India was doing the job, so she wasn't the important one. They just casually mentioned that, did you know her first match was at the Mae Young Classic? And then 2 matches later, the woman that's going to win, it's about her, so we're going to go, oh my God, you won't believe it. Her first match was in the Mae Young Classic. And I'm like, yeah, so was the other girls. And just little things like that. And you mentioned it, the overkill of the Queen of Strong Style.
Oh, God. By the 3rd time, I was just like, I'd never want to hear that again, ever.
And I think it's a great line, especially because Rachel's got a great smile. But, yeah, you don't want to hear it 7 times in a match. But, again, I think just the standouts. We talked on Karen Q's match, which I thought was a standout of the first round. I thought the Rachel Matsumoto match was the best in my opinion. If you wanted to pick the Karen Q one, hey, go ahead. I think the Casey Catanzaro, if I got the name right. Catanzaro, I think she stood out. I thought
sure did.
Miko Satomura really stood out. And to me, those were my strong standouts. I think they were the highlights, if you will. But the one other thing I do want to mention, and it's just the psychology nature of me, there was a lot of matches that I thought were really poorly laid out, where there wasn't a story, there wasn't a build. And I don't know whether it's neither one wanted to play full-blown heel, so they just sort of did stuff. But it really drove me nuts. And in the one match, because I was really looking forward to the Tony Storm match. I'm a big fan of Tony Storm. And she was working with Ginny, who I hadn't seen much of before, but, they've worked before. I'm like, this will be really good. And this is just a lesson to anyone that's watching who's learning or wants to be a more knowledgeable fan. There was 2 moments in particular that got really great crowd reactions, and it was when Ginny threw an amazing-looking forearm and tagged Tony big, and she slapped somewhere. I wasn't paying attention enough to her, but a really loud cracking forearm that got an amazing crowd reaction. And she grabbed Tony and whipped her, and Tony just reversed the whip and did something. And I'm like, that great forearm that got such a big reaction meant nothing. And later in the match, she threw that forearm again, and the crowd went, oh! And then she whipped her and reversed the whip. And it's like, you're making your best stuff mean nothing. The stuff that you're getting reactions on are not amounting to anything. And it's like that what needs to change in wrestling matches. And then as a lesson, the Rachel Evers match. I love the match, and it's like I texted Rachel and gave her my feedback, and it's like what I liked best was her kickouts. And I think that match, if you watch it back in the crowd, they had the crowd invested the whole time better than any other match. And if you watch the body language of Rachel, and I noticed it because I taught it to her, but she kicks out and has this determined look on her face, and the camera gets a shot of her face, and it's like the crowd can feel her struggle to overcome Godzilla. And you can feel the determination of, I'm still in this fight and I'm going to stand up. And that's one of the reasons why the crowd stays invested. And the other, which, again, I gave her a huge thank you for, she had 2 really big near falls at the end. I don't even remember what they were on. It doesn't matter. But there was 2 near falls, and it was the only match I can think of in, I don't know how long, that didn't have the, oh my God, I'm shocked, I can't believe they kicked out face. Which is a great face if it's done twice a year, but it's done twice a match. And on those 2 near falls, when she kicked out, the camera got a shot of Rachel's face, and she had a look of determination on her face with, I can't believe you kicked out, I'm really going to make you pay for that. Rather than the, oh my God, I can't believe it. And I think that's one of the reasons why the crowd was more into it. I know it's why I was more into it. I got that King Kong and Godzilla wanted to defeat the other, and they were digging in deep, and it was a contest. It wasn't the fake emotion or the, well, I got my pop for my spot, let's do something else. I got the battle and the determination to win out. And we need more of that, because if you can get a crowd reaction with kicking out and showing a facial expression, you can get a crowd reaction without getting hurt.
Seems like that'd be the idea.
Used to be when I broke in.
Yeah.
How many times did I potato you the match we had, Brian?
None. How many times did I potato you?
I don't recall you making contact stiffer than perhaps the handshake or hug we had afterwards.
You made fun of me. You called me 80s light.
Yes.
Which actually I took as a huge compliment.
Well, that's the goal, right?
That should be the goal.
And that was when I broke in. That, and again, way more so than today, but it was like on tie-ups sometimes, it's like they wouldn't want you to dimple the skin. And it was working.
I'm like, dude, the very first time, I told the story a million times, the very first time I ever was going to wrestle Buddy, before we even got in the ring, he asked me to lock up with him. And I locked up with him, and he almost went home. He was so upset that I locked up and I did not lock up tight, but it was way too tight for him. And he was like, dude, you better lighten up, buddy. I'd never had anyone tell me that before. You better lighten up. That's what he told me.
Yeah.
Like, one of the biggest things that it's really, whoever started the deal where now in wrestling they want you to lay it in. Like they teach this in WWE, they want you to lay it in. It's like whoever started that started us down the road to where we are now. Because in the old days, the idea was you absolutely positively do not lay it in. But you want to learn to make everyone believe that you laid it in. That's how you knew you were a good worker. That's what a good worker was. A good worker was not a guy that went out there and he had a match and everybody cheered and went crazy for it. That's an aspect of working, obviously. But a good worker was, you believe that this guy's beating the shit out of the other guy, but he never touched him. Chops aside, obviously, because you're actually making contact. But anything else, kick, punch, lift, slam, elbow, whatever. You never touch the guy. but you make the fans believe that you hit him really hard. That's what the art of this was. Then, somewhere along the line, some numbskull trainer got put in a position, and he must have sucked because he started teaching everybody, you got to lay it in. You got to lay it in. And that's what happens. You teach people to lay it in, and they start laying it in, and you get a bunch of injuries.
I worked with Dr. Death Steve Williams once, who was, again, All Japan when All Japan was strong style, and he was a big hoss of a man. I worked him in a match in WWE, just a house show. He wasn't under contract, but it was his hometown. The boys in the back started getting upset because they thought he was beating the hell out of me. That dude didn't touch me. He would punch me in the face, and I would feel a stiff breeze, if you will, or I'd feel a slight touch of his knuckle that really just, I'd rest my head on my hand harder. And there was guys that thought, and again, he threw a punch in the locker room that scared the hell out of me, and I realized how light he was and how great it looked, that I'm like, I'm going to sell the hell out of this stuff. And the boys thought he was beating me up and he didn't touch me. It's like, that's the goal.
Well, we sound like two old men now.
Well, I am an old man. I don't know what
I'm
your
getting
excuse
there.
is.
Yeah. Hey, let's get some plugs in here. What do we got coming up, Lance?
Not a lot. Storm Wrestling Academy. I've got January, May, and September sessions of 2019. We're like 3 weeks in on this current group. If you want to follow us at Storm Wrestling Academy on Instagram, we got some videos. Took a couple of videos of a few arm drags we were demonstrating in class to get people to do them properly. That look pretty cool. At Lance Storm on Twitter, but stormwrestlingacademy.com for the website to check out the school. I'm the dude in the ring with you, teaching you how to work and not hurt people.
That's right.
How to land a punch and kick and not actually inflict damage. And so you can check that out, stormwrestlingacademy.com, at Lance Storm on Twitter. And that's about all I got going on at the moment.
How's Ray's kid doing?
He's doing well. It's still early, obviously, but he moves well enough and is picking things up well enough that I believe he has the ability to be good. You can never say for sure, because some people hit a thing where it's like their brain can't work at this level, but so far he's took to everything quite well. He's a really good kid, and again, he's big enough that I don't think there'll be the pressure for him to work like his dad, because he's too damn big.
Yeah, it's very tough to follow in the footsteps of Eddie Guerrero.
Or Rey Mysterio.
No, Lance. His father's Eddie Guerrero. Do you remember this storyline?
I do, and actually either one of them. Do you want to try to be the next Eddie Guerrero or the next
Do
Rey
not
Mysterio?
attempt this, everyone. Don't attempt it.
But he's a good-sized kid, so if he finds his own way and his own style, which, again, I'll help prepare him to find that, then I think he will do well. He's a good kid that's taken to it.
All right, everybody. On that note, we're going to wrap it up for today. At Lance Storm on Twitter. Make sure you check it out. If you want to be a wrestler, I've told many, many people, and I mean this sincerely, I've been there myself. If you want to train to be a wrestler, go to Lance's school. Dave tells people the same thing. If you're listening to this right now and you're wondering, how can I get better? I'm already in the business. What can I do? Go to Lance's school. It's beautiful Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Don't go there now. You want to go there between June and July. That's the perfect time.
You're such a wuss.
So plan in advance and get out there. And that's it, everybody. We're here usually every Friday. Thanks for listening. That is it. We will talk to you again after a while.